Welcome back to Afro-Latinas United, the channel where we celebrate the richness and diversity of Afro-Latino culture. Today we are diving into a special tradition that many of us hold dear, Dia de los Muertos, Dia de Finados, or Day of the Dead. But what does this celebration mean for us, Afro-Latinos? And how do our unique cultural backgrounds shape this beautiful day of remembrance? The cultural fusion of Dia de los Muertos. As many of you know, Dia de los Muertos is a tradition that originates from Mexico, celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. It is a time to honor and remember those who have passed away, with the first day, Dia de los Inocentes, focusing on children, and the second, Dia de los Muertos, focusing on deceased adults. Although this tradition has deep roots in Mexico, its influence has spread far beyond. For many Afro-Latino communities, this day is an opportunity to blend African spiritual practices with Latin American customs, creating a unique cultural fusion that reflects our heritage. In this video, we'll explore how Afro-Mexicans, as well as communities in Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and Brazil, honor their ancestors and celebrate this special day. Disclaimer: before diving into traditions like Dia de los Muertos, Candomblé, Santeria, and Vodou, I want to acknowledge the diversity of beliefs within Afro-Latino communities. While these practices are deeply meaningful to many as a way to honor their heritage and connect with their ancestors, not every Afro-Latino sees them the same way. For many who are devout Catholics or belong to other Christian denominations, these practices may conflict with their religious teachings and can be seen as forms of idolatry. As a result, they may focus more on Catholic rituals or avoid these traditions altogether. This perspective is not uncommon. It existed within my own family, where candomblé and similar practices were often viewed with hesitation. It wasn't until later in my life that I began embracing these traditions, even with the lingering reservations. Similar dynamics can be seen among Afro-Mexicans, Cubans, Dominicans, and others, where Catholicism often remains a central part of their cultural and spiritual lives. Throughout this video, I will touch on various aspects of these traditions, some of which might be considered controversial or unfamiliar to those who adhere strictly to Catholic beliefs. While it's too much to cover every viewpoint in detail, I hope to provide clarity that not all Afro-Latinos practice these rituals. This diversity is part of what makes our community so rich and complex. Celebrating Dia de los Muertos, among Afro-Mexicans in Mexico, Dia de los Muertos is widely celebrated, particularly in the Costa Chica regions of Oaxaca, Guerrero, and parts of Veracruz, where the Afro-Mexican community brings its own perspective to this tradition. Afro-Mexicans have deep roots that trace back to the African diaspora during the colonial period, and their influence is especially felt in the music, dance, and spirituality of these celebrations. For many Afro-Mexicans, honoring ancestors goes beyond the traditional altars or ofrendas. Rituals like the Danza de los Diablos, Dance of the Devils, have roots in African cultural practices brought by enslaved Africans. This dance serves as a way to call upon ancestral spirits and maintain a connection with their heritage. It is not just a performance, but a way to invite the spirits into the celebration and the blending African rhythms and instruments like the marimba and jarana. Dia de Finados in Brazil, honoring ancestral spirits. In Brazil, the closest equivalent to Dia de los Muertos is Dia de Finados, celebrated on November 2nd, known as All Souls' Day. This is a time when many Brazilians visit cemeteries to honor their departed loved ones, cleaning graves, placing flowers, and lighting candles. While Dia de Finados is not exclusive to Afro-Brazilians, it overlaps with candomblé practices, where honoring the Igun, the spirits of the deceased, is a central aspect. Candomblé, a spiritual tradition rooted in West African beliefs, incorporates ceremonies for the Igun throughout the year. These gatherings may include rituals, songs, and offerings that invite the spirits to join the living. The ofrenda. Let's talk about the ofrenda, or altar, which is a central part of Dia de los Muertos. For Afro-Latinos, the ofrenda represents a space where we honor those who have passed by, offering their favorite foods, drinks, and objects that remind us of them. While the traditional ofrenda might include pan de muerto, bread of the dead, marigolds, and sugar skulls, Afro-Latino families often incorporate elements that reflect their African heritage. In Cuba, the ofrenda may include items like cafecito, rum, or dishes such as arroz con pollo. Cuban families, especially those with a connection to Santeria, use this time to honor the orishas alongside their departed loved ones, acknowledging the spirits that guide them. Similarly, in the Dominican Republic, many families integrate voodoo practices, such as lighting candles for the Loa, the spiritual entities that protect and guide their ancestors. The Dominican ofrenda combines Afro-Caribbean spirituality and Catholic traditions, with offerings like mama juana, sweets, and foods their loved ones cherished. The spiritual connection between Afro-Latinos and their ancestors. For Afro-Latinos, Dia de los Muertos is more than just a cultural tradition. It is a spiritual connection to our roots. The belief that our ancestors watch over us and guide us is central to how we celebrate this day. In Brazil, especially within the afro-Brazilian communities that practice candomblé, the concept of honoring the Igun holds great significance. While Dia de Finados is a national day of remembrance, candomblé practitioners may honor their ancestors throughout the year, holding ceremonies like Obi or Igun rituals. These ceremonies are ways to maintain a connection with the Igun, inviting their presence and asking for their guidance. Offerings like farofa, feijoada, and cachaça are common, creating an atmosphere of reverence, respect, and joy as the presence of ancestors is celebrated. Personal stories and reflections. As a Latina, Dia de Finados has always been a time for my family to reflect and remember those who have passed. We light candles and offer flowers, much like many other Brazilian families. But as someone connected to my Afro-Brazilian roots, there's also a deeper spiritual aspect that we observe. In my family, we hold on to the traditions of candomblé, where honoring the Egun is an essential part of how we keep the memory of our ancestors alive. On special days, we gather for ceremonies where we sing, drum, and make offerings, inviting the spirits of our ancestors to be with us. It's our way of keeping their wisdom and love close, knowing that they watch over us. This makes Dia de los Muertos resonate deeply with me, even though it's not exactly the same as the celebrations in Mexico. It's a reminder that honoring our ancestors can take many forms, whether through a quiet visit to a cemetery or a vibrant ritual that brings the whole community together. Both ways connect us to our roots and allow us to remember where we come from. The importance of representation. As Afro-Latinos, it's crucial that we see ourselves represented in celebrations like Dia de los Muertos and Dia de Finados. Too often, the stories of our African ancestors are overlooked, but they are just as much a part of this tradition as any other. By including Afro-Latino perspectives in these celebrations, we remind ourselves and others that our history is rich and layered, and that we belong in the narrative. This day is about recognizing that our ancestors come from many different backgrounds: African, Indigenous, European, and each of them deserves to be honored for their role in shaping who we are today. The more we share these stories, the more we can appreciate the beauty of our diverse cultures and the strength that comes from being part of the Afro-Latino community. A call to honor our ancestors. So this Dia de los Muertos and Dia de Finados, let's take a moment to honor our Afro-Latino ancestors, to celebrate their stories and to keep their memory alive. Whether you're lighting a candle, building an ofrenda, participating in a candomblé ceremony, or simply sharing a meal in their memory, remember that they are with us, today and always. If you have your own Dia de los Muertos or Dia de Finados traditions, I would love to hear about them in the comments below. How do you honor your loved ones? And what special items do you include on your ofrenda or in your rituals? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Afro-Latinas United, and join our community as we continue to explore the beauty of Afro-Latino identity together. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay proud of all parts of who you are, and have a meaningful Dia de los Muertos and Dia de Finados.
Tchau, até a próxima vez!